All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining our first webinar of this year. We're going to be continuing the Direct Sourcing Decoded series, and starting with today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on the program fundamentals. We are going to be your hosts for this webinar and for the rest of the series over the course of this year, so you'll be getting to know us pretty well. My name is Anne Llewellyn. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at TalentNet, and I also have my team on the call, so I'll pass it over to Matt.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, everybody. My name is Matt Redling. I'm a member of the CS team here at TalentNet, and I'm a Customer Success Executive. Over to you, Sathi.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. For those who I haven't met before, my name is Sati Gampat, and I'm a Customer Success Executive here at TalentNet as well. And today we are very excited to share how a direct sourcing actually works. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Anne.
All right, thank you. So I'll go over some general housekeeping before we get started. So unfortunately, it can't be a fully interactive session, but that being said, if you do have a question at any time, please do drop it in the Q&A box. We've left some time at the end to answer questions, and if we do unfortunately run out of time and can't address your question, we will follow up with you after to have that chat as well. We're also going to be recording today, and we're going to be circulating that recording out after the event as well. Okay, so a few quick words about TalentNet for those of you who may not know us. So we're founded in 2013. We're a direct sourcing technology and services company focused on helping companies attract, engage, and curate top talent using their own brand. So we provide the technology platform as well as strategic program guidance that powers some of the leading direct source programs here in the US and globally as well. Innovation really is at the core of what we do, so we're continuously trying to evolve to make sure that we're reflecting the shifting dynamics of the talent market and the real world needs of our clients. Now, obviously today we're going to be talking about direct sourcing, but I want to start by kind of breaking down and defining the concept itself. So with direct sourcing, organizations can build their own talent communities. Candidates can then engage directly with the brand of the organization. Companies can use their brand to attract those candidates, and then over time they build the value of their talent community and ultimately create it as an asset to the business. And then talent is sourced from those existing networks and pools. So essentially, direct sourcing is a programmatic way to attract and then redeploy talent. Now, what we've seen is that direct sourcing adoption is accelerating across enterprises. So it's no longer experimental as it was maybe a decade back. It's really becoming a core part of workforce strategy. But as this adoption increases, many teams can jump straight into the execution. So focusing on tactics like, talent pools, job posts, or even the technology, but without fully designing the program behind it. And because of that, sometimes results can be inconsistent. So some organizations can see quick wins while others struggle to sustain impact or struggle to scale maybe down the line. And that's where the real gap is. There's still maybe a lack of understanding around how a successful direct sourcing program actually functions end to end, because it's not just a sourcing channel, it's an operating model that does require the right strategy, the right governance, and then that ongoing optimization as well. So that's going to be our focus for the webinar today and then throughout the course of the year as well. So let's talk about the fundamentals. So to really understand why some programs succeed and others stall, we have to look at the structure behind them. High-performing direct source programs aren't built all at once. They typically will evolve through a series of stages. So it starts with the foundation, getting alignment on the strategy, the stakeholders, and then defining what success actually looks like. From there, you can build on top of that. So putting the right processes, the right technology, and then right candidate engagement model in place. Once the program is live, the focus then shifts to optimization. So this is where you start to be able to analyze performance, refine workflows, improving candidate experience, improving hiring manager experience. And then from there, you can start to scale. So expanding across job categories, geographies, or even business units, but in a way that's intentional and in a way that's sustainable as well. And then finally, innovation. So this is where mature programs really start to differentiate. So they can start to leverage data, leverage automation, and some of those deeper talent insights to give them that true competitive advantage that direct sourcing can bring. So a key takeaway really is that direct sourcing isn't just a one-time implementation. It's a structured and also evolving program. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Matt to go into our next section.
Thanks, Anne. So while direct sourcing is different in many ways to your traditional staffing suppliers, the foundations of a winning program are going to be familiar to anyone in the contingent or staffing world. And as we dive into what a direct sourcing program is today, I'd like to start and focus on 4 foundational elements. The first being the strategy, but more specifically, how talent is prioritized. So in direct sourcing, we categorize talent in 3 groups. There's your known talent, which includes your former workers, your silver medalists, referrals, etc. There's your brand attracted talent, which is any candidate arriving through branded channels like your career page or your branded job postings. And then finally, there's the source talent, which are candidates that your curator is actively recruiting to meet current and upcoming hiring needs. And so the most valuable candidate is someone who has a track record of performing well at your company. And a key objective of any contingent worker program is to, one, identify, then engage and redeploy these former workers. Direct sourcing achieves this by building a private talent community that you'll be seeding with known talent, and then creates opportunities for talented people to reach you directly without forcing them to go through a third-party supplier or recruitment agency. Then, as you increase the size of your talent community and your known worker populations through a series of successful assignments, you can start to realize significant cost savings and then reduce your reliance on third-party vendors. Now, it's important to know that your suppliers are going to be building similar pipelines of your former workers and then submitting them back to you wherever possible. And they're often going to be charging you a premium for these former workers because of the value that they bring to your business. And so direct sourcing lets you take back control of how you engage with and hire these known workers. It'll give you the tooling and the operational workflows to build a talent asset, and then the opportunity to leverage that talent will independently from your vendors and their markups. Next, with a clear strategy in place, we now turn to process to operationalize how all this is going to function. And that includes the workflows that are going to be required to enable the success. After that, what you're looking for is a direct sourcing technology or a solution that will provide a number of different things. Now, direct sourcing is all about leveraging the strength of your brand. And so your technology is going to need to be able to carry the look and feel of your brand across every point of interaction. And that's for both the candidates as well as your curation team. The features and then the reliability of your technology is going to help you go from a small program to a large or enterprise scale program. And so direct sourcing technologies like TalentNet will be integrated to a lot of the different tools that you'll be using on a regular basis, including industry-leading VMS platforms, whether that's SAP Fieldglass, Beeline, Vinly, or any others. This direct connection to your VMS will enable the two-way communication of jobs, candidate submissions, interviews, offers, assignment details. Other integrations to look for are obviously going to be, integrations to leading job boards, but also look for specialized integration like TalentBridge, which is a TalentNet SAP Fieldglass exclusive feature that allows you to pull top talent directly from your VMS into your private talent pool. And then finally, we have the people of the direct sourcing program. These are your delivery teams. In many ways, the partners and the people supporting your program can be a difference maker in whether your direct sourcing program success is going to be big or small. Your key partners are going to be your MSP, your program office, your curation team, and then any other direct sourcing subject matter experts that you might have supporting your program. And this can include people like us, the customer success team here at TalentNet. These partners are going to be invaluable to you as you look to turn goals into wins. So look for partners who have a track record of successful direct sourcing implementations, and who have experience in each of the various phases of a direct sourcing program. This will include obviously the implementation and launch of a program, but then also taking initial programs from Gen 1 to Gen 2 direct sourcing programs as well. You'll also want to consider experience with direct sourcing programs in multiple geographies and regions, because that will become important if you want to replicate the success of your initial program in other geographies as well. So next, I'll look to double click a little bit into the strategy of building your talent community. There are four main components here, which will be attract, engage, reuse, and then redeploy. So we spoke about the three main categories of talent. I'll repeat it: the known, the brand attracted, and the source candidates. But direct sourcing solves a problem that all businesses hiring through high volumes of contractors struggle with, and that's going to be the hidden cost of supplier fragmentation. Now, most enterprise organizations don't actually have a talent shortage, they have a visibility and access problem. And when you're routing your contingent hiring through dozens of staffing suppliers, you tend to lose control of three things pretty quickly. And that's going to be the cost, the speed, and then the candidate experience as well. You're also relinquishing the control and the ability to capture and re-engage the contractors who did a good job through these vendors. And so direct sourcing ends up flipping that traditional model and then gives businesses another option. Instead of relying on your suppliers, you can build your own curated talent pipeline that balances the dynamic between you and those suppliers. So direct sourcing technologies like TalentNet will offer many different ways you can engage with your talent community, whether that's through a branded and customized community page, email and SMS communications that carry your branding and business values, newsletters, or even the job postings. Direct sourcing will allow you to tightly control that candidate experience, as well as the messaging to your community. And that's something that's nearly impossible to achieve across your regular suppliers. And so as we look to any existing populations of high quality talent you might already have access to, you'll notice that you'll want to start targeting the known workers like alumni, previously successful hires, silver medalists, and some others. This is one area where things like Talent Bridge as a feature become an advantage to you in your direct sourcing program. The collaboration between the business and your curation team will also help to attract and engage these known worker populations and then bring them back into the talent community for future contract opportunities. And as your talent community grows, you'll need to nurture those populations of former workers and then create strategies to redeploy them wherever possible. And again, remember, your suppliers are going to be doing the same thing, and often they're going to be doing this at a greater markup. So you might as well give yourself the opportunity to contact these workers first before you're going out to the suppliers. These former contractors will be your most effective strategy to improve things like time to fill, and then also add some cost savings into the mix. And so if we go over to the next slide, direct sourcing is not just a tool. And as Anne described, it's a new operating model that'll solve four of the most critical problems facing talent leaders today. That, of course, is control, cost, speed, and then access to talent. When we look at control, we can look at the idea of stopping the rogue hiring practices. When you're growing fast, hiring managers need results in candidates right away. And for these leaders and managers to perform for the business, they often rely on talented individuals to get that work done. But when they need talent now, they often reach out to personal networks for candidates that they can count on. And then before you know it, you have a growing, untracked, and high-risk shadow workforce. And so as you're having conversations with your leadership, the business case that you want to bring to them as part of this control concept is you can't improve what you can't see. And so control isn't about micromanagement. It's about getting the data to make strategic decisions, hold teams accountable, and then ensure compliance. And this is going to be a foundation that makes everything else possible within your direct sourcing program. Next, we have the idea of cost and savings. And in direct sourcing, the savings are not trivial. High agency markups are an unavoidable cost of doing business until they aren't. So Every job you don't send to direct sourcing ultimately is a missed opportunity for cost savings. The ability to direct your contingent spend to a more affordable option like direct sourcing will have real world impacts on your business. And to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you get rid of all your suppliers in favor of direct sourcing or anything like that. Actually, what I am suggesting is some of the best examples of direct sourcing are implementations where companies were able to consolidate their vendor lists and then reward their top suppliers with larger pieces of the pie. And so your business case here is to say direct sourcing savings are not something to scoff at. There's a capital investment back into your workforce strategy. And so every dollar you stop paying in agency markups is a dollar you can reinvest in the company. These savings don't just happen once, by the way. They will compound year over year as your program matures. So over time, this becomes a really significant advantage for direct sourcing. Next, there's the idea of speed and faster time to fill. And when you need talent, oftentimes you hear we needed them yesterday. And so your hiring managers will need people to work on their projects effectively immediately. And every day an assignment is open is a project delayed, it's a deadline missed, and it's also a team stretched thin. So often speed is one of the most tangible measures of success for your stakeholders. And so here, the business case that you'd want to present is when you consistently beat your own suppliers on speed through direct sourcing, you're not just filling roles faster, you're proving that this model delivers where it counts most for the business. You're reducing project risk and then accelerating business outcomes. And then finally, there's the access to talent. And I'll return to the concept of known talent here as well, because that is going to be a known advantage for you in direct sourcing. You've had great contractors in the past, but then they're gone after their assignment. You'll spend time and resources vetting, interviewing, onboarding, training all these workers to become valuable team members, only to lose them back to the market. And that's operational and organizational knowledge that's just walking out the door. So here, the case you want to bring to the business is a majority of your pipeline is already sitting in your network, ready to return to work and do a good job. A well-managed talent community will give you a bench of people who know the work, know your culture, and who are eager to return. And so as I kind of wrap up this business case for direct sourcing conversation, there's one thing to really kind of consider is that these are not hypothetical concepts. These are all real-world examples from real programs that TalentNet has served through the years and are serving today. And all these programs are operating at scale. So the benefits that they're seeing are not insignificant. They're actually quite important to their businesses. And so the fundamentals when we're looking at building business cases for direct sourcing are generally going to be the same. It's about taking control, reducing dependency, moving faster, and then redeploying the talent that you already know. Once you achieve those things, the results will follow. And so with that, I'll switch over to you, Sappy.
Thanks so much, Matt. So now that we've covered what direct sourcing is and all of its benefits, let's talk about what actually makes these programs work in practice. So here's what I hear a lot, right? Organizations learn about direct sourcing and then they think, well, this is really great. Let's just hire, let's hire talent directly and cut out the middleman. And while I get that, on the surface, it sounds really simple. As Anne and Matt mentioned, the programs that actually deliver results are built on a foundation. And like any foundation, you need to have the right structure before you worry about the finishing touches. In my experience, the most successful direct sourcing programs are built on 4 common elements. So here we have governance, vendor management, the delivery team, and technology. So let's walk through each one. Governance is the strategy and oversight layer, the part of the program that really answers to who owns this, what are we trying to achieve, and how do we make decisions? It sets the program's goals and defines compliance requirements, as well as aligns all the stakeholders who have a seat at the table. So that includes, procurement, HR, TA or talent acquisition, finance, and even legal. And that's really intentional, right? Because direct sourcing touches multiple parts of an organization, and that includes workforce strategy, supplier relationships, compliance, and of course, the technology. So good governance keeps everyone kind of rowing at the same direction. And, without it, you end up with a really, really great idea, but no one's steering the ship. So next we have vendor management. And this one might surprise some people, but it's worth calling out directly. Direct sourcing doesn't mean, again, walking away from your supplier relationships, as Matt mentioned, but it means being smarter about when and how you use them. So suppliers definitely still play a critical role, especially for those niche skill sets or urgent needs, specialized roles, or even those with, within geographic reach. But direct sourcing adds another channel, and one that lets organizations really tap into their own talent communities first before going external. So in mature programs, the two work in balance, and suppliers remain a strategic part of that ecosystem, but the organization also has a sustainable but self-built talent pipeline. And that's a really powerful position to be in. And then next we have the delivery team. And this is really the human engine of the entire program. These are the people that are building the talent communities, engaging candidates, nurturing those relationships, and connecting the right talent to the right opportunities. They are really what makes direct sourcing feel personal and not transactional. And that distinction really matters because direct sourcing, when it's done really, really well, it's not just a talent acquisition program, and it truly becomes a relationship program. The delivery team here is what sustains those relationships over time and what makes candidates actually want to stay connected within your organization. And then we have the technology. This is the infrastructure layer that lets the whole program scale. And without it, managing large talent communities, tracking engagement, matching candidates to those roles, and even measuring performance would be nearly impossible, or impossible to do efficiently. One thing I always remind organizations is that every organization is not the same. And not every program needs all four components from day one. Some start with a focused pilot and others launch enterprise-wide. The architecture evolves as the program matures, but these four elements are the backbone of every successful program that we've seen. Now I want to spend a moment to talk about the Curator. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So once we look at the program as a whole, we want to take some time and look at the fundamental shift between the curation and the recruiting teams. So this is one of kind of the biggest cultural shifts in direct sourcing that I can think of. Again, the move from recruiting to curation. A traditional recruiter is focused on filling roles, but that means just, when a job opens, a candidate is sourced, an interview happens, and then the role gets filled. And everyone kind of just moves on to the next rec. And that's transactional by design. But a curator, they operate completely differently. They build long-term relationships with talent and they nurture those communities. They engage with candidates even when there's no open role. And they represent the employer brand for a single organization. The question shifts now from, how do I fill this role to how do I build a community of talent that will support this organization long-term. And that's not just a different job description. That's really just a different mindset. And in successful direct sourcing programs, that's where, we see the biggest change, and that's the real game changer here. All right. And next, we're going to talk about who powers a direct sourcing program. So let's talk about the key roles in the entire ecosystem, because strategy and technology really only go so far. So the people running these programs are what make or break them. So who powers the direct sourcing program? So most of you in this space are familiar with the MSP. They manage the overall contingent workforce program, which includes operations, supplier management, compliance, and reporting. The enterprise environments that they're in, they're the central coordinator for the entire workforce ecosystem. So they ensure that processes are followed, suppliers are managed effectively, and program performance is monitored, which is key. When direct sourcing is introduced, the MSP is often the powerhouse that integrates the program into the existing contingent workforce strategy, which is why this relationship matters so much and is so important. Then we have the VMS. The VMS is the technology platform which manages requisitions, supplier submissions, candidate tracking, onboarding, and workforce visibility. If you can think of the program like an orchestra, the VMS is what keeps everyone in rhythm. Okay, so in direct sourcing programs, the platform integrates with the VMS so that talent flows into the existing process without disruption. And then lastly, we have the curation team, which I think is the most important role of all. This is where direct sourcing really differentiates itself, and the curation team builds and nurtures the talent community. So constantly cultivating a pipeline so that when a role does open, you're not just starting from scratch, right? You're drawing from relationships that already exist. And connecting candidates to future opportunities is a fundamentally different approach. And it's one that is the most valuable things that I believe a direct sourcing program can offer. All right, now let's talk about the technology, because technology is what allows these programs to scale effectively. And within modern direct sourcing programs or platforms, it provides several core capabilities. So first, we have talent pool search. Organizations can quickly search their talent communities to identify candidates with relevant skills, prior brand engagement, as well as previous working history. So this helps to dramatically reduce the time to shortlist or even to submit. Next is candidate engagement. Talent communities here only really work if candidates stay connected. Technology enables communication campaigns, automated messaging, event invitations, and newsletters. This keeps communities active and warm over time, which is essential. Then we have matching technology. This is where AI is increasingly powerful. Matching technology analyzes skills, experience, job requirements, and historical hiring patterns to surface strong candidates faster than manually searching alone. Next are the integrations. And the best direct sourcing platforms don't really ask you to replace your existing technology stack. Instead, they want the solution that enhances your existing infrastructure without disrupting it. So seamless integration with your VMS, your ATS, and HR systems are really non-negotiable for an enterprise adoption. And then we have analytics and insights. This is especially important to understand metrics such as talent community growth, time to submit or submission to hire ratios, and especially time to fill. This data layer really provides visibility to programs and gives you that insight into continuously improve. And then lastly, here we have AI and talent agents. As we know, AI is continuously changing the game, and we're seeing a growing role for AI and intelligent agents as time goes on. So the most successful programs combine smart technology with really strong human relationships. And at TalentNet, we have enhanced our platform with AI in a number of ways. We have agents for role-specific interview questions, profile summary generation, scheduling, candidate comparison, which is really cool, automated pipeline building, and real-time voice-based matching. The future of direct sourcing is meeting your team where they already are, whether it's in Slack, Teams, or Outlook. So with all that being said, what does that actually translate, or what does that mean for your program? Well, your curation team gets faster and sharper. AI handles all that repetitive work, and your people can focus on the relationships and the decisions. So you scale without scaling headcount. And for a team of 5, you can really operate with the output of a much larger team. Your talent community becomes a true living asset and not a static database where you have to manually maintain. And the best part here is that you stay ahead. While the competitors are still trying to figure out where AI fits in their hiring process, your program is already running on it. So TalentNet isn't just where your recruitment data lives. It truly is where recruitment intelligence happens. Okay. And lastly here, I wanted to shift gears here for a minute because everything that we've covered so far has been about program structure, the roles, and technology. And all of that does matter and it's very important, but ultimately the measure of success for any direct sourcing program is how it feels on the other side, which is the candidate. So think about the traditional experience for a moment. A candidate applies for a role and maybe they hear back, maybe they don't. And if they're not selected, the relationship just ends. There's no ongoing connection, no visibility into future opportunities, and no real sense of what that organization actually is like or what that feels like. So if we flip to the other side and we compare that to a well-run direct sourcing program, candidates don't just apply once and disappear into a void. They become part of a talent community. They receive relevant updates on opportunities. They're getting meaningful updates as well, and direct communication from the curators who actually know them, and they have interest in building that relationship. So they gain visibility into where their skills might be a fit, not just for today, but maybe 6 months down the road, right? And over time, they build a real understanding of and also have trust in the organization as a brand. So that, with all that, the curator relationship makes all of that possible at scale. And it's not just about filling jobs anymore. It's about building the kind of connection that makes candidates choose your organization when the right opportunity comes along. So when you take a step back and you look at direct sourcing as a strategy, as a program, and as a set of technologies and an operating model, it's more than that. It's also something more fundamental than any of those things. It transforms hiring from a series of one-time transactions into an ongoing relationship with talent. And it creates a channel that is, I think, more transparent, more engaging, and more human, at a time when that kind of connection is genuinely needed and matters. So the most successful direct sourcing programs aren't just built for efficiency, but they're truly built for connection. So with that, I will pass it back over to Ed.
Thank you, Sati. All right, so as we start to think about how these programs are structured and everything that goes into them, I really want to highlight that there is no single kind of quote unquote right way to build a direct sourcing program. Because what works for one organization can look very different for another, depending on their goals or their resources, their size, or even their level of maturity. So that's why we see a range of models in the market today. Some fully internal, some externally supported, some with an MSP, some without. The direct sourcing structure really isn't a one size fits all. Direct sourcing is really about designing a model that aligns to your organization's strategy and how you want to engage talent. So I want to take some time to talk through some of the most common models we see, but again, highlighting that this is by no way the end of the list. There really can be a lot of variation. I'll start with the first one. This, I would say, is probably the most common model for large and complex organizations, but it's an external curation team, an MSP, and a VMS. So the MSP drives the governance of the program. The VMS manages, the requisitions, the rest of the supply base, the distribution, things like that. And then there's the curation layer that focuses on that recruitment function, the delivery, the candidate engagement, things like that. So this model works really well when scale, when compliance and supplier coordination are critical. Another common model that we see is an internally managed program. So here, an internal team would own sourcing and engagement and program management end to end. So this model really would allow an organization maximum control and tighter alignment to their business goals. This one is better suited for organizations that maybe already have strong recruitment teams or they have the existing infrastructure in place to be able to support direct sourcing as one of their functions. Another common model we see is no VMS, so an unintegrated direct sourcing program. This is a great, or can be a great entry point for a smaller company, or also kind of a way for a growing organization to kind of dip their toe in before investing in full tech stacks like a VMS or other systems down the line. The focus in a model like this tends to be more so on building the talent communities themselves, proving value, and then again, some go on to implement a larger solution down the line, or if it's a smaller business, they could stay in a model like this. And lastly, I want to highlight the internal mobility model because this one kind of expands the definition of direct sourcing, and instead of focusing on hiring, focuses on your existing workforce. So an internal mobility model creates a way to upskill and redeploy employees and contractors both, improving the retention, maximizing the internal talent that you already have within your business. And this approach tends to be integrated with HR systems or talent marketplaces rather than something like a VMS. Now, if a model that you're considering or that you're looking to implement isn't here, again, what I really highlight here does not mean that direct sourcing isn't for you. These examples are just kind of meant to highlight the range of possibilities and how organizations can really tailor their approach based on their unique needs of their business. All right, now, we've talked a lot about direct sourcing, but I want to talk about when you should consider direct sourcing. So it tends to be especially valuable when organizations face high volume or repeat hiring needs. Because instead of constantly posting jobs, chasing candidates, you can start to proactively build that pipeline of qualified talent in all the ways that we've been talking about today. Now, this is also a great approach if you want more control over talent or costs. By owning that candidate relationship directly, you can start to reduce that dependency on expensive external agencies, have more influence over quality, over timing, time to hire, things like that. Organizations that rely heavily on external suppliers often find that direct sourcing gives them more visibility into their talent ecosystem and also can help reduce some of those risks that can be associated with fragmented supplier networks. And then finally, if there's a focus on long-term talent strategy, like building talent communities, nurturing candidates, and aligning to your future business needs, direct sourcing provides a sustainable strategic advantage in those areas. Because ultimately, direct sourcing is a shift from a reactive hiring approach to a more proactive, strategic, and fully owned approach to talent. And success in direct sourcing starts with understanding those core program fundamentals that we've been talking about today, so that you can build a model that evolves with your business needs over time. All right, so with that, Kelly, let's switch over to Q&A.
Okay, everybody. We have seen a lot of really great questions come in. I just want to highlight that before we jump into the Q&A. Please continue to drop your questions in the Q&A box. We will try our best to answer them live. If not, someone will be following up from our team and give you additional information or set up a meeting, whatever works best. But again, these are, I think we can all agree, some of the best questions we've ever seen. So with that, let's kick off our first question. Sathi, this is to you. What metrics should you be focusing on in a direct sourcing program, and what SLAs are you typically seeing across programs?
That's a really great question. And one I always say separates transactional programs from truly strategic direct sourcing. So what I tell clients is to think about metrics in two buckets. And so the two buckets being, one, is your program healthy and is it performing? And I think on the health side, you're watching things like talent community growth, candidate engagement rates, and time to shortlist. These tell you whether your community is actually alive, or is it just, a list of names collecting dust? And on the performance side, the metrics that matter most are your direct sourcing fill rate. So mature programs are typically seeing somewhere between 30 to 50% range for eligible roles. So looking at your submissions to hire ratio, time to fill, compared to your supplier channel, and also your redeployment rate. So that last one is truly underrated. I think if candidates are coming back for second and third placements, your curation team and your program is truly thriving. On the SLAs, what I typically see in a well-run program are candidate submissions within that 24 to 72 hours of a rec being released, but also shortlist within that 2 to 5 business days, and curators responding to candidates' inquiries within that 24 hours. That engagement or responsiveness when it comes to candidates is crucial. If you drop the ball there, the candidate experience is almost dropped immediately. And the last thing I always remind clients is that the metrics you start with aren't the ones you'll end up with. Year one is about getting the community built and the fill rate moving. But year two and year three is where you start telling that efficiency and cost story. So the programs that do this really well treat metrics more of a conversation or a live conversation for improvement rather than just, like a monthly report card or QBR.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sassy. And switching gears over to you, Matt. What are some of the best practices in direct sourcing that lead to the highest level of customer or client satisfaction and success?
That's a very good question. So as many people know, the best practices that we've put together at TalentNet are all essentially designed and created to kind of maximize success and satisfaction through direct sourcing. But I think it's important to highlight three that I think that are not necessarily overlooked, but maybe aren't getting the focus, attention, and thoughtfulness that they might deserve in the context of setting up a direct sourcing program. I think for the first point, I will kind of borrow a little bit from Sathi's response with respect to SLAs. So I think having clear operational workflows and SLAs is going to be critical as you're designing your direct sourcing program for two main reasons, honestly. The first is, yes, you want to set direct sourcing up for success, but you also need a mechanism and some SLAs to hold direct sourcing accountable to what your expectations are of direct sourcing. So that would kind of be the first one that I would kind of highlight. Next is another best practice that we often kind of work with our programs and our clients to do at launch, but it's also something you want to do throughout the lifetime of your program, which is seeding your talent community with that known talent, with that high value talent that you already have access to. The reason why this is so important at the launch of a program is because you want to capitalize on the momentum and the excitement that surrounds the launch of a direct sourcing program. Oftentimes programs will launch with a good volume of jobs, but you also want a talent community to match right out of the gate. And so that's where seeding it with this known population of talent is going to really give you a leg up right at the beginning. That will allow you to kind of accumulate quick wins, will start to bring you the ability to be credible throughout the rest of the business. So you're able to reach out to new hiring managers and kind of show them the success and the impact that direct sourcing has had in other instances. And then the momentum just builds from there. So I think that's something that's really important to get right. And then finally, my last point is actually also going to borrow from Sathi's response to the previous question, which is give your direct sourcing program exclusivity. This also ties back to some of the stuff I spoke about earlier today, which is you want to be able to leverage the talent community that you're building as an asset, as a priority. You don't want to be failing to give yourself the opportunity to reach out to that talent on the first go around, because your suppliers are going to do the same, and then you've just missed an opportunity to reach that known population, and you're leaving savings, time to fill, improvements, all of that good stuff on the table.
Thanks, Matt. And just to piggyback, just FYI to all our attendees, you will be in your follow-up email that includes this recording, some information around best practices and a white paper about best practices and some of the results that we've seen, like a really good use case for your internal orgs. So with that, I'm gonna shift questions over to our next question over to Anne. How involved is HR as part of direct sourcing?
That actually can depend on two things. So the first, if the program only covers contingent labor or if it covers all types of hiring. And then if the program sits, or yeah, if the program within the organization sits under HR or procurement. So if the program is HR led, you'll typically see, obviously, a much deeper involvement from HR and direct sourcing. So from strategy but through to the execution as well. Now, if it sits within procurement, HR does tend to be still a key partner, definitely during implementation of the program, but over the life of the program, maybe more so focused on alignment, candidate experience, brand use, things like that, rather than day-to-day ownership of the actual program. So again, it really kind of does depend how the organization is set up.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. Question over to you, Matt. Are companies able to disable AI if they don't want to use it?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, especially today. There's a lot of kind of interest and excitement about AI, and still a lot of questions too, I think. I think AI introduces some complexity into any organization, no matter how you implement it. In the context of TalentNet and how we implement AI, while we are investing in AI as part of the future of our platform, it still remains something that can be enabled electively with our programs. So while we're kind of driving the adoption of AI within the platform, you can still operate independently of these AI models and still achieve excellent results. We see AI mostly as a force multiplier to an already well operating program and curation team, for example, as opposed to kind of the main driver of the success.
Cool. Perfect. And with that, that's a wrap on today's session. Any of your questions that were submitted that we did not answer live, again, a member of our team will be following up with you directly post-webinar. And look out for our follow-up thank you email for attending with the recording and that supplemental material that we talked about. And look out also for our next session, which will be taking place in the coming months. We've really tried to stack this year to be like a guidance building on each webinar. So look out for more content. And please connect with our team on LinkedIn if you haven't already have. And thank you for joining us today.